it's not on the agenda, but Clerk Grote, could you please do a roll call?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Recording in progress.
Roll call for the 6:18 work session. Mayor Pro Tem Howe.
Here.
Councilman Crane.
Here.
Mayor Lindsay.
Here.
Councilman Humbert.
Here.
And Councilman Weeks.
Here.
All
Okay.
present.
At this time, I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda, but I would like to move item A down the list until Mr. Martinez is available.
I make a motion to approve the agenda with item A being moved down to be discussed later.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So currently skipping item A, moving on to item B, discussion RFP 2024-010 attorney legal services. Manager Weir.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council, I just wanted to make the council aware that we will be coming at the next meeting on the 25th to ask for your approval to go out to RFP for new legal.
Now he walks.
Manager Ware, I am recording you now.
New legal counsel. To be honest, I just think that the scope of our legal counsel, I'd like to expand. I've been trying to get help in the areas of water rights. Contacted our previous legal counsel, Joe Canepa, spoken to him once, had Dan Rake speak to him multiple times, and of late, he's not responding. That and some other things that we're looking at, personnel matters and so on, I think that we could, for us to find a different legal counsel to be able to handle all of these different issues would be better for the village instead of trying to find expertise in one place or another and have issues, multiple issues with multiple legal counsels like we have today. So basically, I just wanted y'all to know to see if y'all had any questions. The reason we put this work session on is because the next meeting is going to be very long. I wanted it to be over before midnight. I thought the issues that that are going to be on the next agenda, we could kind of have a conversation now about. And if there's anything that you need us to do research on or anything, we could get it done before the next meeting, so that meeting proceeds as quickly as possible, since it's going to have a lot of agenda items on it.
So are we set up now where we're looking for legal counsel in each individual area of expertise instead of one overall? I mean, I know we have.
Well, we are, and part of that is I've tried to work with the on-call attorney, and he's been good at some things and has been very slow to respond at some things. I've sent him emails that he's not responded to. He did come out and do the session for the Lodgers Tax Committee, which I was very appreciative of. He did spend time with Lieutenant Strickland to talk to about what he's going to be presenting today. But in other cases, like I said, I sent him an email to ask for an agreement on one thing, and it was a pretty simple request, and he, in my opinion, made it way more complicated than it needed to be. There are other areas of expertise that we've relied on other legal counsel for, and I just think we need to look for a new legal counsel.
And this has been a discussion since January.
We've been talking about it since January, because in the beginning, when we first came on board, it was over a month before our current legal counsel responded to anything. Now, I understand that he was on vacation in Europe or something, but I guess nobody was checking his email or his messages. And, and we had issues that we wanted to deal with, and it actually, the end result of that it hasn't yet, but it's still in the works and could end up being detrimental to the village.
Any other questions or comments for Manager Weir? Nope. So we move on to item C. Discussion, resolution 2024-32, wildfire protection fees. Manager Weir?
Yes, sir. I mean, this is the time of year where we're looking to increase any of the potential fees. I believe the CPI index is 3.1, what was it?
3.3 is what I was gonna say.
3.3. So in your packet, you can see last year's fees. And so at this point, on these fees, we can actually increase these fees to anything that the council would like to increase them to. I mean, I do like the fact that they're round numbers, and I'd like to try and keep it something in that, something that's round, but I also would like to see a little bit of an increase in these numbers, and I'm asking the council for advice on what they think that these amounts should be.
So there's a note on mine, and something I know we've talked about at the Fire Adaptive Committee, that we eventually want to get to where we're certifying lots to go to a minimum. Am I reading this right, that the minimum fee is $10 currently? But that's,
Currently, the minimum fee is $10, that's correct.
but that's for lots of 1 acre or less. So if you have somebody that has a half-acre lot, clearing or certifying their lot's going to result in no reduction.
Well, it's still $10.
It's still $10. It's $10 whether it's certified
Right.
or not.
Right.
You see my
Based
point?
on Guy Wood's note
Yeah.
on our packet. I mean, as you know, I would still like to revisit this entire fee structure. And I don't think we're in a position to do it today based on eliminating the fees for certified lots. But
Right.
right now, we don't have a process in place, anyone qualified.
Correct.
And we need to
To
go through an
certify
ordinance
lots.
in order to
Exactly.
support us for that, if we want to do something to that effect. I mean, these all have ordinances behind them, they're just resolutions that are allowed by the ordinance to designate the fees associated with those ordinances.
Right.
So, if we're looking at changing the ordinance, I mean, if you want, we could leave these fees as they are and then just look to, in the July, August timeframe, working on changing the ordinance. I haven't gotten any recommendations from anybody to change the ordinance as yet, so.
So the last Fire Adaptive Committee meeting, that was basically where we got to is, we think we're gonna be, getting all of the old material chipped. We've gotta get that paperwork from Universal Waste to do so. But the thought process there was if we can make the backlog go away, it's time to get to work on rewriting that ordinance. Again, copying more of the Ruidoso structure. And the thought was, I think what Mayor Lindsay and I had talked about probably in Ruidoso is keeping it cost neutral to the village. In other words, as somebody comes along and thins and certifies their lots, that lot would get a discount on the wildland protection fee, but whatever savings they realize are gonna be passed on the cost to the non-certified lots. Is that
That's my
still
ultimate,
the thinking?
that's my ultimate thinking.
Sure.
Is that what Guy was recommending
That's something
here?
that guys in support of, yes.
Like through a fine or?
No, not
Just-
through a fine, you just take the fee. If people are exempt or paying a minimum, then whatever revenue is being lost from that discount is then dispersed across all non-thinned lots. The goal being over time that it becomes it becomes an economic incentive for someone within their lot.
Yeah.
Well, and I think Ruidosa did it that way to treat it more of a carrot as opposed to a stick to begin. They did get to fining eventually, but it was really more if you can incentivize people to thin their lots, you're gonna get that 20-30% that we're gonna do it anyways. They might do it faster, if there was some incentive to do so.
And Manager Ware and Public Works Director Epler, I would like to understand, I mean, how you feel about it, and also, you mentioned you'd like to see the rates increased in a round number. Is that just?
It doesn't have to be, it makes things a little bit easier, but it's not
I
that big a
understand.
deal.
From an accounting perspective, you're saying? The fund seems to be healthy based on what we're spending currently. I personally would personally like to not see an increase in the rates. I'd rather continue our discussions on a new ordinance.
And again, that's why we wanted to have this meeting, because if y'all tell me that you don't want to see these rates increase, I pull it off the agenda, right?
Sure.
So it would actually,
Excuse me, Mr. Weir, is the resolution still applicable because we're setting the fees for the new fiscal year?
In other words, do we have to have a resolution to reaffirm the fees for 24-25?
well,
It would stay on the
yeah, it
agenda.
does, actually in the resolution, because the resolution is year-specific. Yeah, so that's a good catch, Mr. Clerk. We will need to have a resolution in there. It could just be the same amounts.
Does say 23 through 25,
No, that,
or is that just?
No,
That's-
it's, if you look at last year's,
see the
which,
fiscal year down.
last year's, it says wildfire protection, yeah, I
Oh.
think it's page 3. in the
Yeah, that
handout.
dash isn't a year.
Right, it's-
That's just I'm sorry.
In the signed resolution, it says, where's the rates for fiscal year 23-24?
It's just the number of the resolution. So that, I mean, that's my opinion. I would still like to see us moving in that direction.
I mean, so if that's it, I mean, we can have a resolution for 24-25 that keeps everything the same. And then we can, when you guys figure out what it is you want, we'll bring in legal counsel to have them write up an ordinance. And then that'll be a month or two process to get through the system.
So functionally, if we're going to basically be recalculating, your lot's certified, yours is not, so your fee comes down by whatever percentage we decide, when, at resolution time, or then we gonna readjust? In other words, how are we gonna capture shifting $5 of cost from one lot to another?
It'd have to be in the ordinance.
Well,
It's gotta be an
so.
ordinance.
So there's two things there. One is, we have to have the ordinance written to describe that, to allow us to actually execute that transaction. Then we gotta look and see if our software can handle it, because this is all being billed. And how do you reallocate on a monthly basis?
And see, I think monthly, it's gonna be probably too much. Do you do it quarterly? Do you do it twice a year? In other words,
If we're gonna
recalculate.
rewrite the ordinance, we can make the cycle whatever you want in the ordinance, but even quarterly, I mean, there's a lot of details to think about in that process, because at what point in that quarter does somebody have to get certified in order to qualify for the discounted rate?
Right.
Following quarter, yeah.
I mean, so like if the day before we do billing, or the last day of the quarter, if they qualify, does that mean they get the discounted rate in the next quarter, or do they got to sit out a quarter? Because the billing process, I mean, in doing that type of adjustment, I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's gonna be a lot of interaction.
Almost like you'd want to revisit it each year to see the different increments and just raise the rates incrementally to the lots that haven't, based off of the
And
certified
that's another way to
lots.
do it, is you could, like we do it now, just do it once a year, and make that adjustment once a year.
Based on-
And then if somebody gets, gets that certification of their lot being Firewise or whatever the terminology is, then they don't see any benefit from it until the next billing year.
The only other things, I guess, from a rate perspective, we have the job description from Rio Dosa for their forestry guy. I'm not sure if they're paying that out of their wildland fees or not. And then, I know, I had a conversation with Manager Weir and Director Epler about, we have a second grapple truck. It'd be nice if we had that out doing pickups, if, in other words, increasing these fees might help cover some of the cost of running 2 grapple trucks all pickup season long. We don't have a second guy right now, but we have the second truck.
And that's still something that we're contending with, is not
Yeah.
only the collection, but the disposal.
Yep.
Which we're working through, and I hope to have a solution by the end of the season.
Absolutely.
But until we have those pieces in place as well,
Yeah.
I think that's gonna be key to the new ordinance. But yes, I'll just reiterate that I have been in favor of reducing these rates for people that have complied, and if there's not a mechanism to do so now, then I'm in favor of keeping them the same.
So, all I'd say is, whatever that terminology is and those considerations are, hopefully the Fire Adaptive Committee will come up with a proposal for that. When the Fire Adaptive Committee is ready for what they want the outline of that ordinance to be, I think that would be an appropriate time to take that ordinance to legal counsel and verify, number one, that what we're trying to do is legal, and number two, to write up the language that's going to support the action. At that point, it would also, before we proceed, I'll make sure that we look in our system and make sure our system can adequately bill that way. If you did the once a year, and it's just a matter of, you have another rate here of certified people, right? So you have your initial rate certified people, $5, and then you start off non-certified, 1 acre, $10 and so on. I'm not saying those are the right numbers, I'm just using it as an example. That's something I feel certain we could do, but the ordinance is gonna have to read that way. My concern is if you start doing it much more frequent than 1 year, it's gonna become somewhat burdensome on accounting.
Fair. Okay.
So my takeaway for the notes and for the resolution that will be before the council on the 25th, number 2024-32, I'll rewrite that to make it say no increase in rates, but relevant to FY25.
Well, you don't even need to say relevant, because what happens is if we're gonna redo the ordinance will take care of everything that's currently in place.
But the ordinance will not be referenced in the resolution that
No.
comes before council.
It'll be handled totally
This will
separately.
just be this resolution.
Just updating that this morning.
Yeah.
So you have a choice, you can either choose to raise these rates, or if you don't want to raise the rates, you can leave them the same. But at this time, without an ordinance change, we're not going to be able to adopt anything that says for those.
Right now, we can't. They're still gonna have to pay the minimums monthly. Nothing's gonna change, is what I would say.
Yeah, because we could actually insert, I need to check, but I think we could insert another rate for
But we-
certified lots
currently
that would
don't
be
have-
zero without changing the ordinance.
We currently don't have a certification process.
That's the problem.
Right.
What that certification process is, I'm not sure the certification would be required to be an ordinance, but it would need to be defined somewhere and referenced in the ordinance.
So I think that's important language to have in the ordinance. And so until we can clearly address that, I think the safest thing, again, in my opinion, is to just not increase the rates currently. Because we're looking, if we hit the ground running, we'd be looking at 4 to 5 months before we had something in place.
Realistically, I think you're right.
It could even be next fiscal year, before anything changes, so. The following fiscal year, I should say. Any other questions or discussion on this item?
Question. Can we talk or ask questions or?
If you would, Ms. Fear, just go to the podium and just state your name and certainly.
My name is Jack Fuhrer. On the SLASH program on the certification, who would be responsible for coming up with the certification procedures?
That's exactly what we are gonna need to work through. But ideally, we would like to have a forester on staff or contract to help come up with those descriptions and assist in the inspections. That would be the goal.
Okay, so we're waiting then for a forester. I've got to be on staff.
Manager Weir?
Yes, and Mayor Lindsay. So, Mr. Fuhrer, we actually have submitted an application that we feel with some confidence that we'll receive that will help fund a forester for the village. And we should be hearing any time now whether we're going to get that grant. And if we get that grant, then of course we're going to go through the process of hiring a forester. If we get the grant, hopefully we'll have a forester within a month. And so my recommendation would be to wait until that forester's on board before we do anything. We can keep working towards it. Just before we finalize anything, if we get that grant, I think that we should probably at least let the forester give it his or her blessing.
And there were several that went to Ruidoso a month or so ago to see their process. We have a copy of their ordinance, we have a copy of their forestry department's procedures, job descriptions, and so we're looking to just duplicate as much of that as we can. Obviously, it's a rough day in Ruidoso today with all the fires going on out there, but they've had the most successful thinning
SLASH
program in the state, and so that's why we're
And
trying to copy it.
arguably the country,
Yeah.
for that matter.
And we've got everything lined up to pull the trigger on going out for that job as soon as we're confirmed getting the grant.
Okay. On a positive note, I've had SLASH out in front of my property for 3 years, okay? Stopped to see Valerie today to sign up for, a permit type thing, like I do every year. And she said, if someone doesn't come pick it up within 2 weeks, call me. And I'm saying, I'm happy if you get it this summer. I don't care about 2 weeks. I mean, that'd be great. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I know the responsibility switched from Public Works to the fire department, but I didn't realize it was gonna be that quick. I'm here for a single issue here for the certifications, since I have 3 lots, so I don't hate to be rude, but that's the only reason I came.
Sure.
Good seeing you all. Hope to see you sometime this summer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coffee cup. Sir?
Sir?
Mr. Fuhrer?
Jack?
Can't forget that, thank you.
Okay, with that, let's move on to item B. Discussion resolution 2024-33, regular municipal elections. Manager Weir.
We had this in the packet in the beginning because we were just mimicking what was there last year, and we should have pulled this out of the packet, so there's nothing to discuss there.
Do we need to go to council and just reiterate that there are no council elections? So this just gets ripped.
It comes completely out. There's nothing to be acted on. There's no action needed. All right then, easy enough. Moving on to item E. Discussion resolution 2024-34, water sewer availability rates. Manager Weir, or would you like to defer to Director Epler.
Director Epler, are you ready?
Yes.
By the way, Director Epler came in today for this meeting while he was on vacation, thus the scruffy appearance.
I was camping with my grandson, so. it was,
Sorry to take you away.
Man Camp 2024. so. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I do believe there still needs to be increase to the water sewer availability fees along the lines of current CPI of 3.3%.
3.3?
Yes, sir.
And the reason for the increase would be?
Well, the reason for the increase is just the continued maintenance cost. A lot of old infrastructure that's prone to failing. We just need to stay on top of it. I'm very well aware of the fact that our water and sewer rates are quite a bit higher than other places. But we'll say we deal with a lot of challenges up here that very few communities do. A lot of them related to living in an alpine environment up in the mountains. Dealing with infrastructure that was taken over. That in my honest opinion, a lot of it was installed without any oversight, quality control. And water lines and sewer lines can last many years, but if they're not installed correctly, first go around, it's an issue. We have a lot of issues everywhere. And price of materials absolutely is not going down. And the labor to maintain and repair the infrastructure and facilities goes up on a yearly basis as well.
So although I know we're on discussion E, but for your sake, I'm assuming that you would have the same feelings on items F and G as well?
Yes.
I mean, and it's true, we'll never have enough money
Water department.
in the water department to, in the next, I don't know how long, to get where we need to be. But I do think we need to offer Director Epler all the help we can get financially. The other, I'm optimistic that when we get the new water meters online, what we're hoping to see a boost in revenue there, and maybe we can readdress rates next year. But, I'm not a fan of raising these rates, as he pointed out. They're the highest, some of the highest in the state. But again, we have extremely unique challenges here.
Well, given the number of 2-inch lines and bad hydrants and lack of sewer, that roads and water are gonna spend the most money in this village over the next 10, 20, 30 years, so. Nobody wants to raise rates, but we desperately need the money in those departments.
Anyone have anything further for Director Epler?
Just point of clarification on Resolution 34, recommended 3.3% increase.
Yes, sir.
So, and I can give you, if y'all want the actual numbers, I mean, it's for the monthly rate for the water, the availability fee is gonna be $12.85, billed quarterly at $38.55. And then the availability fee of $28.62, billed semi-annually at $171.75.
That's with the increase.
That's with the increase, that's what they'll be.
If it's okay, I'd like to just go ahead and address items F and G as well, and have Manager Weir speak to those rates with the 3.3% increase recommended.
I'm sorry, you're looking for the,
Sewer rates
Bulk water.
and both water fees.
okay, so that's gonna be and include that. Mr. Mayor, yeah, I'll have to go
And we can discuss it at the meeting on Tuesday.
I mean, as far, you want the specific amounts?
I was just curious, yeah, what they would be.
I mean, I need to go pull that.
And that's okay.
The actual rate table's not included in the packet.
And what you quoted before, wasn't that the water sewer rates? Or was that
Three 3.3% is gonna be the rate that we're gonna be eligible to raise, the percentage that we're gonna be eligible to raise the rate by for all utilities.
It's the water and sewer rate,
Water and
actual
sewer.
rates.
But what he was quoting was the availability fees.
Previously I quoted the availability.
Oh, okay, I thought it was.
Because that's,
actual
the availability
water and
fees
sewer rates.
are in a separate ordinance. I mean, a separate resolution. So there's a resolution for the availability rates, and then the, yeah, so I'll need to go pull that if y'all want to know those numbers.
What did you say the sewer availability monthly rate would go to? It's 2771 now, it go to,
It's going to go to 2862. Billed semi-annually at 171.75.
Again, this is a working session where we're establishing direction. And the direction I'm getting for writing up the resolutions for the council meeting is about a 3.3% increase for resolution 35, 36, and 37. No. 34, 35, and 36. And then we get into the tap fees.
Correct.
That's my understanding so far.
Just
That's right. Well,
one information there, water sewer availability rates on the agenda is 24-34, but on the resolution in the packet, it must be the old one.
Oh, that's
20.
last year's
That's last
resolution in the
Got it.
packet. We just provided that for
The last year's.
informational purposes. And
Got it.
resolution numbers will be different from year to year.
So we're gonna recommend that on all three of those, or that's the gist, is the water sewer availability, water sewer rates, and then the bulk water all at the 3.3%?
that's the recommendation of staff, yes.
What are the, can you elaborate, what are the bulk water fees?
I can look them up. It's basically what people pay. We have people that come in, like the people that do the cement plant, and they come in and they buy water out of our fire hydrants, and we charge them about a gallon for that. And that's an example, bulk water.
Okay.
So with that, I'd say we just move on to,
You're on
Item
number
H.
37?
yeah, item H. Discussion of resolution 2024-37, schedule of tap fees. So, are you gonna pull the tap fees? What were you gonna pull?
Yeah.
Director Epp, are you prepared to speak to
Yes,
the tap fees?
it's gonna be the same, but I also wanted to mention that I think we need to take a serious look at village code and ordinances in relation to water taps and sewer taps for service laterals. In particular, in the instance where somebody buys a lot, water tap is on one corner, and they want it on the other corner. I do believe that that burden of cost should be put on the owner.
And it currently isn't?
It's not really clarified.
And I didn't know that there was an option to do that at the same cost. I thought where your tap was, and then you could, so in the past, I have paid for a wet tap in addition, but you're just saying there's no documentation to support how to charge for that?
It's not clear enough to me. I need to research it a little further, and I'm sorry for not having researched it more, but it's
Oh, I
just
understand.
something that came to light, a situation on Friday that made me feel like I needed to at least plant the seed and get the discussion started on it. What it appears is that there is a method of figuring cost and labor and doing a wet tap, where in reality, I would like to put the full burden on the landowner to hire a properly licensed contractor to do that tap. It just simply ties up our crews for too long. But if it's preferred that we continue to do it with our crews, I'll go along with that.
I'm not suggesting that at all. I think using the contractor would make sense in anything outside of your traditional scope. So if you have a tap on the corner lot and they choose not to use that, then yeah, I would shift the burden to them, and as far as the cost of, and the contractor. Obviously, you'd have to have some kind of inspection.
Yes.
The village would.
Yeah, we would have to have some oversight on the tap itself, but also the restoration of the road.
Exactly. And I also think that helps keep it clean, where we're not trying to change a rate
Yeah.
or have a specific rate, because it almost need to be just time and material based on how different every situation can be.
Absolutely. I know the challenge will be limited number of contractors in the area that are capable of doing that or have experience doing that.
Yeah, I can understand but I understand your limited resources as well.
Forgive my ignorance here, but isn't this mostly gonna come up on some of the very large plots where that's primarily your 5, 10, 20 acre tracts?
Yeah, we have had two on smaller lots ask if the meter location could be moved. One instance we were able to by running a line lateral in the right of way a little bit. Another one wanted it from the other corner, and convinced them to make it work where it's at.
And I guess that's another issue that come along these lines for discussion. But I know for a fact that a lot of the PID is off by tens of feet. So in other words, where your actual property corners are, the utilities were set, I mean, it could be as much as 50, 100 feet on the neighbor's property, in front of the neighbor's property on the right of way. And so I know those have been a contentious issue too. Whose responsibility is it to bring it to the corner?
Yeah, it's, I don't believe it's the case in all of the PID. It's definitely the case in
Village West,
in Village West and the Aspens.
the Country Club, yeah, the west side, in other words.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know where that burden falls and how we address that, because it is it's an issue on every other lot. It's in the middle of the lot or set into the lot, where the others, it's not in their right of way at all. And I've also noticed that can also impede access sometimes, where the meter taps are, the utility junctions all are, when they're set into a lot. So yeah, I think it would be helpful to have some answers prepared for those situations.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll have, unique situations come up and want it to be known. I mean, we'll exhaust all measures to make sure we, in the end, we're gonna do what's right. We're gonna do the right thing. But also on some of those larger tracks, if the tap is off by 20 or even 50 feet, getting it to that corner may not be as big of an ordeal as going a few hundred feet to the other corner. Where we can go lateral within the right of way for a certain amount of distance. It's, we gotta work on a case-by-case basis, but I think we need to have the ability to say, plain and simple, if that's where you want your tap,
You can put that
That's where it
tap
needs
wherever
to go.
you'd like, but you're gonna pay for it.
I will say in the past, anytime I had to get a water service from a different location or tap into the sewer, I had to do 100% of it myself in the village of Indian Park.
So, the schedule of tap fees, now we do have, let me pull it, I'm sorry, let me.
I have the schedules coming, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, I thought they were included in the packet. I didn't realize that last year, in the packets that were uploaded, because we print off the previous packet for the meeting that included this, they didn't have any of the attachments included in the previous packets. They only had the resolutions. So I have them coming right now. They'll be here in just a minute.
So what you'd be looking for is clarification in the ordinance on the corner issue. It wouldn't necessarily be a change to this resolution, but the actual ordinance clarifying.
Yeah, and also establish that we do have the ability to put the burden of that onto the owner.
Is this, are we also looking to increase the schedule of tap fees by the 3.3% as well? Is that something that we're considering? Manager?
Yes.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Are we looking to increase the schedule of tap fees by the 3.3% as well?
Yes.
So what you're seeking is maybe some specific language to those wet taps.
Yes. I thought I'd bring it up while he was getting the schedule, just to kind of have to see.
I mean, I think that could be a policy that what you miss, manager, is it tends to occur more on larger parcels, but where your tap is already predetermined for your water meter and your sewer tap, it may be more convenient to have it somewhere else along the right of way. But to tap in those locations is costly to the village. And not only should there be a fee involved if we do it, but Kurt would prefer that that burden fall on the property owner.
So the actual burden of installation?
To hire a certified contractor to do the installation on a wet tap, just because of the taxation on the resources to accommodate that. Even if we are charging for it, the time involved and what it takes away from other projects. That's his concern.
So would we be looking at, in addition, so there'd be a tap fee if the connections are basically already in place? And there would be a separate tap fee for changing that location or for, if there is no location in place?
Yes, it would be separate, but what it would also include is the encroachment fee deposit, where they would have to put down a deposit for the disturbance of the road that would be held until the road is restored after the excavation. So it would, I think we would have to come up with a wet tap fee if a contractor was going to be doing it, and but follow the same process as any excavation in the road where a deposit is given for restoration of the road.
So I think that's possible, if that's what the council wants. I would need to review the ordinance to determine if it would need to be rewritten in any way to accommodate that, or if we can simply include that as an additional fee level in the current ordinance.
I mean, my suggestion would be keep the fees the same, and then the additional cost is on the owner, including the installation.
Okay.
There would be an inspection before it's covered, and like you said, a deposit that would have to be made for the water line itself and the roadway. But I don't think we need to add an additional charge. I mean, I don't know if that could just be a policy that we will set your meter at your predetermined location. If you choose to have it done elsewhere, the fees all remain the same, but then that burden is then shifted to you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It does.
Does that make sense to you, Kurt?
Yeah, and I wanted to be made clear, we are capable of doing wet taps and willing to do so. we have a couple of meter installations right now where the water service lateral is underneath primary and secondary power, primary and secondary fiber optic, and some phone that there might still be somebody hooked up to. So we made the determination that not only, the installation isn't easier. It's not easy to do a wet tap, but thinking towards the future, we just want to get it away. It's pretty rare that you have all the dry utilities and wet on the same corner.
But in that instance, I mean, what you're saying is you chose to do a wet tap at that point?
Yes.
But that would remain on the village
Yeah, we wouldn't put any burden on the
in that instance.
property owner at that point.
Thank you. So these are the current rates.
There is language in regards to sewer hookups that try to define the level of responsibility of the property owner. But I think we need to look at those as well, because some of the language used isn't completely clear. A discussion for another time. Again, wanted to plant the seed.
Okay.
So I'm hearing that the 3.3% increase is not applicable to the tap fees, that we write that up in a way where changes to the current installation are then on the onus of the owner.
Well, actually, we're talking about tapping method. The tap fees are
The tap
actually
fees,
something
yeah.
different.
But we are talking about taking the tap fees up by the 3.3.
Yes.
So that is still applicable.
Correct, still
Got it.
applicable at 3.3.
Right. So again, I think for simplification, we're looking at increasing the tap fees. But as far as Kurt's concerned with the wet taps, that I think it should be a policy in place that if you choose to set your meter at a different location, again, that burden falls on the owner. So I don't think that will affect our resolution, Dennis. We'll just be looking to increase the tap fees.
I understand.
So I know I may have come out of left field with that, but I saw an opportunity. to bring
It's
it
a
up.
good, well, we're on the topic.
But we're having our first roads and infrastructure committee meeting tomorrow. I'm sorry, on Friday. And so some of the things that I would like to start off discussing in that first meeting is some of our rules and regulations and policies, and how enforceable they are or unenforceable they are. So we can discuss things like this as well.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion on the schedule of tap fees? So then moving on to item I, discussion resolution 2024-36 meter installation charges. Again, we're just looking at a 3.3% increase for the cost of meter install. So, and that's the maximum that we're allowed?
By our ordinance, we can only raise the rates by the CPI.
So my concern is that enough? I mean, is the cost, is what we're charging for meter installation, is that enough now that you've set a bunch of meters?
Well, surprisingly, the cost of the consumables has been kind of flatlined for the last couple of years. They really went up during COVID and availability and stuff, but the prices have stayed relatively the same. But still, labor has gone up, everything else, so.
Will the new meters, I mean, we're gonna go over to the new meters, obviously. we still have some backlog of the old ones. The meter swap process hasn't started yet, but will be soon. So when we get to, you know, next spring, the first meters that gets set, will those be backstock or the new ultrasonic style meters?
Ultrasonic.
Okay. And will the three, are those meters a wash in cost versus what we had been inventorying at the village, or are they more expensive?
They're actually, and obviously this comes from Sustainability Partners and their group to be able to buy mass quantities. Their cost of meters are lower than what we're paying for meters right now.
And this is just so help me clarify, this is the meter installation charge. Does that include the cost of the meter? I don't believe it does it, or does it?
I believe it does.
It does include the cost of the meter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says in item or paragraph 2, installation charges shown for 1 and 1.5 inches and larger meters is for materials only, and includes the water meter, pressure reducing valve, and dual check backflow prevention devices.
But what you're saying is even though we're moving to the digital meters, they're actually, based on the rate at which their Sustainability Partners is buying them, they're less than what we're paying for mechanical meters?
Slightly less.
But, again, this is maybe for next year, but at some point, Sustainability Partners will be done. And the village will be buying those meters for individual installation at new build sites. Do we have any idea if, because like you said, they're buying them in huge bulk buying quantity that we won't have. I don't know how many you buy meters at a time, but are we?
I don't have that answer for you right now, but I will get it.
Okay. If that meter's gonna be $1,000 more than the one we're currently buying for inventory now.
It's not that big of a difference. Of course, we're not buying the ultrasonic ones, but you know, as with anything, it's a gamble to try to predict a couple years down the line what something's gonna cost.
Sure.
But there's not such a difference in what they're paying from what we're paying for regular ones, but there is, you know, a difference.
Well, I was shocked at, during their presentations, at what they're able to get those meters for.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a few $100s. We're at
Yeah.
$400 a meters. So,
Now,
For the standard.
yeah.
Now, one thing, you know, I should mention, and you know, I am pushing CPI increase for everything through, but in regards to the new water meters, as we start getting accurate readings, and if we find ourselves recovering money from unbilled water usage due to inaccurate meters, then perhaps some point during this year or at this time next year, we have a little better opportunity to look at the water rates. If we know, if we get the revenue from these new meters like we feel we're going to when we start recovering lost water, then we can look at passing some of that benefit on to the consumers.
I agree.
And Mr. Mayor, just as a reminder, when they did this process in Logan, they recognized a 25% increase in billings, and Logan didn't have, my understanding is they didn't have near the issues we have,
Yeah.
and the number of meters, like we have
Like,
numerous meters that don't, hundreds of meters that don't work at all.
Yeah, and in their presentation as well, there has not been a municipality yet that has not recognized.
At least
an increase.
20%.
Yeah, at least 20%. There was one in Louisiana that might be worse than we are.
Yeah.
But they were halfway through the project and already recognized a 60% increase.
Right.
So,
Well, understanding that one thing that's going to come out of this, particularly on the meters that are working but are not anywhere near accurate, is people will start experiencing a larger water bill. And absolutely, we can explain it with the addition of an accurate meter, so forth and so on. We have to hope that a higher water bill will initiate water conservation. But I do believe at some point between rate increases. We're gonna have to find some middle ground, because if we do really get a good return on these meters and monitoring the unbilled water usage, yeah. But again, until I see them work, right now, I'm proposing, let's keep going up with.
Well, and again, I think you revisit it next year and see if if all of a sudden our water, I mean, it would be fine to be flush with cash, because you got plenty of places to go put that money in the ground and desperately needed infrastructure, so, I'm with you. Until we actually realize those numbers in our bank accounts, I think the 3.3 and hope for better next year.
Mr. Mayor, Director Epler, the one thing is that in our current schedule, that's part of the resolution, you'll notice the meter descriptions. And I don't believe that these descriptions are the same for the new meters.
The sizes?
No, the sizes I think are the same. It's
Just the
this, you have
description.
The sealed register, the turbine,
compound.
the compound.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't seen that.
So that will need to be updated.
That's gonna need to be updated to reflect the new meters. I don't think we can take these off, because we still need to be able to bill for them until we get them all replaced.
Right.
But we actually ought to add these sizes,
The new model.
sonic meters that we're putting in.
Okay.
But the sizes, the billing, installation charge would remain the same. But yeah, to have a description next to it, that's a good catch. Any further discussion on water meter installation charges? And we will move on to item J, discussion of resolution 2024-39, solid waste trash service rates. Director Epley.
Again, I'm gonna propose an increase CPI 3.3%.
Mr. Manager, do you know why solid waste is different, and that it looks like it has to be approved by DFA?
Mayor Pro Tem, I am not sure of the reason of why solid waste would need to be approved by DFA.
Okay.
I do think that with solid waste trash service rates, that particularly in regards to multifamily dwelling units that get dumpsters, that the option provided for numbers of times that it's emptied a week starts with a minimum of 2. I don't think that's sufficient. And I spoke with Manager Ben Gully about this as well. You know, we should have discussion and consider making the minimum amount of dumpster empties 3 instead of 2. Usually when somebody's on a 2-day empty schedule, it's Tuesday and Thursday. And knowing that in the winter time, actually now we have more people here usually on Friday than we do on Sunday. People have changed their travel patterns some. And so we find ourselves in that situation by Saturday morning, dumpsters being full, and next empty's not till Tuesday.
So Manager, where would that be, a policy change? Minimum pick and an increased rate?
So as far as the frequency of pickup and how, it would be a policy change. It would not be a ordinance change, it's not required. The ordinance doesn't speak to that. The ordinance speaks to resolution. Actually, it would probably be best in a resolution format.
So but as far as we're concerned, as what we're addressing on Tuesday, we're just looking at the 3.3% again.
That's correct.
But while we're on the subject, it would be good to address the minimum number of pickups and what that fee structure then looks like.
Well, I think it's a discussion that needs to be had with property managers, HOAs, everybody prior. I just, again, wanted to plant a seed, saw the opportunity.
But is that a topic for the resolution itself?
No.
Not for this one, no.
Good. And I guess that's why we're having this meeting, is to get that out and then the
Iron the kinks
25th
out
goes
now.
quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, any further discussion on item J? We'll move on to item K. Discussion resolution 2024-40, solid waste transfer rate.
Again, I'm proposing increase, but I do notice there's items on here that we're not currently accepting. Tree stumps, for one, I know they're not accepting those over there. So is it to be left in place in case we do decide to keep, or start accepting them again?
I would keep it in place for that reason, if you were to accept them.
Okay.
Anything else?
No.
This resolution has the same language Councilman Howe referenced with the need for approval for DFA, so Manager Weir, if you're gonna look
So
at.
y'all are talking about,
Well, that's not on all of them.
Yeah,
yeah, you're talking about the
The
proposed,
template.
this is just a template
Okay.
that Dennis included in here so you know what the resolution number is.
got it.
This is not the actual, the way it's gonna be written out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm sorry, Councilman.
No.
What are you referring to?
This,
oh, just that language.
No, on your current year
Department of
template,
Finance
Dennis,
at
that
the
last
last.
whereas.
yeah.
So again, staff's recommending item K for the 3.3% increase to this fee structure. Okay, any other discussion on item K?
No.
The only thing I would add, Mr. Mayor, is on this item, I do not believe this item is subject to the 3.3% limitation. The 3.3 limitation is related to utility fees, and I don't think this is solid waste transfers is considered a utility.
And then the other, I guess, the other was any updates on perhaps scales versus cubic yards? How you see that progressing?
We, in this next year's budget, we've budgeted for scales, looking at an in and out scenario, plus a smaller scale for smaller loads. But what I mean by in and out is a simple plate scale. When somebody drives in, they're weighed, and then on the other side of the shop, they're weighed on the way out. Difference is calculated in weight.
But to that point, when do you see approximately, I mean, what kind of time frame are we looking at going to a weight structure versus a cubic yard structure?
I would say by end of September would be a reasonable goal.
So should we include language? Although it'd be hard to identify those, well, it wouldn't be though, based on what we pay to dispose at the landfill, which is by weight. Can we back engineer a fee structure? It doesn't have to be, I think, in this, but it's something that we need to be prepared to,
Well,
or
I
even
think-
offer, that we might be shifting to a weight structure versus a cubic yard structure.
Yeah, well, the initial discussion is of going by volume instead of weight. I was informed that this was gonna cost us a lot of money. couldn't quite understand that. So the task that I gave was to, in order to create a rate based on weight, we gotta have total cost, obviously. The cost that I received was just the dump fee at the landfill. We need to go deeper than that, and I've asked Manager Gully to work on that and take things all into consideration, labor, depreciation, everything.
Well, there's fuel.
Fuel.
Everything.
And to be able to come up with a per ton price.
So that's a project that you and the manager are working on.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I just don't know that if we should include some language that was gonna happen this fiscal year.
So again, I will check and have the answer to this at the next meeting, but I do not think that this ordinance limits us to the same time constraints as the utilities.
And then,
And
and
so
also the number of
we could
increase.
pass this, or we could go forward with whatever you guys want this to be now and come back to you once we have the scales in place to do additional rates based on tonnage.
And then based on that, we're not held to the same constraints of the 3.3%. Is that what staff's recommending, is a 3.3% increase? Would you like to see anything higher on any particular items right now?
No?
3.3 across the board?
Yeah. Well, going back to the scales, one other thing I really wanted to see to do a proper analysis, I wanted to see what our transfer facility revenue from that point of sale was at year closeout to basically get it all together, to be able to do a comparison of, I will have figures of what was hauled to the landfill and hopefully be able to ascertain if figuring by volume or by weight, we've got to come up with a rate that doesn't cost us money, but isn't too excessive as well.
Yeah, again, I think it's just from personal experience, the same trailer with the same load and a drastically different price based on who's working.
Yeah.
At the moment. And that's not, I'm not picking on any, this has been going on for 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, it's estimating rather than actual weight.
Exactly.
Well, the scale takes away the need for whoever's working, point of contact with the customer over there. Takes the judgment call off of their shoulders.
I hope we weren't too loud.
Not at all. Thank you all for meeting in the closet back there.
It was intimate.
Any other discussion on item K? Well, I'd just like to thank Director Epler for coming in today. Really do appreciate it. Moving on to item L. Discussion of resolution 2024-41 traffic violation fees. Like Lieutenant Strickland?
I don't think we have a copy of these scheduled for these, do we?
So what I have for you is basically what I took our current statute policy and just redid the fees according to what has been assessed with the surrounding counties, cities, the ones that were available at least. Currently, the top page shows our current penalty assessment for traffic citations, basically moving violations. A penalty assessment is something that we have to provide when we stop somebody by law, we have to give them the option of a penalty assessment. And when reviewing our current policy, I am noticing that it is delinquent in a lot of the moving violations that other municipalities have put on their uniform traffic code. So we definitely need to review and update some of those statutes showing that there's a penalty assessment to those, whatever moving violation it may be. The second, so there's the first 3 pages kind of just show what our penalty assessment is. The next 3 pages, what I have refined those payments, what they would look like. I have basically added $30 across the board. So starting from the lowest traffic citation for 10 mile, up to 10 miles would be $60, and then moving on up. The last 3 pages show what the current rates are at Taos, the municipality of Taos. So their lowest one is $76, and then moving up. And then a lot of people have construction zones and fines for those. We don't have that, so I also added that on ours, and basically just added a $25 fee moving up, so 25, 50, 75, 100 moving up that way for the fines. Now I went through and looked at the other somewhat surrounding counties, municipalities, and I have Cimarron, Cloudcroft, Rio Rancho, and Sunland in this packet as well if you want to look at it. But this is just what their current rates are. Very similar to Taos, some higher. Rio Rancho is a little higher. But part of the reason that we're looking at or upping these fines is because $25 for a parking citation isn't really doing a lot of deterrence. I've had individuals come to me and say, well, if that's the cost of parking there, I'll just leave it there. And I'm like, well, if you do, I'm gonna have to tow it. But they really do park there, and I've multiple days, same days, I'm sorry, recurring days, I've had to cite them again. They don't care. So part of it is trying to prevent violations, at least moving violations in our village. The other part is the cost of doing business is also increasing. So we have our costs for housing individuals at the prison, also the cost of the hospital. If we have to take someone to the hospital for whatever reason, that cost continues to go up as well. So that helps address those. So with that, I stand for any questions.
So I have a question, and this one shocked me when I learned it a couple of years ago from Officer Finch.
Okay.
Passing a school bus in New Mexico.
Yes.
It is more expensive to park in a handicap spot to get a ticket to do that than passing a school bus with its flashers on.
Mm-hmm.
In Texas, that was, I think it was 4 figures if you got pulled over passing a school bus with its hazards on.
Mm-hmm.
I found it on the Taos one. It's actually
$161.
$161. So we're above Taos there. We're $200, and
And moving to
your
$230.
suggestion is $230. That one to me is, and I don't know if New Mexico is just that much different, but that was a big infraction to pass a stop school bus with its stop
Sure.
sign on.
Sure.
And I've seen it happen a couple of times, and I've seen you guys pull them over, but at $200, that one shocked the heck out of me. That
More in comparison to.
in comparison to some of the surrounding states. So I'm not
Right.
suggesting that, hey, let's raise all of our fees so high that nobody ever breaks the rules of the road again. But the school bus one, I guess, just shocked me. So is that something that could be looked at with others? Because what happens is, and I know, we have the school bus that goes all the way through town, and somebody gets in a hurry and doesn't see, it's just,
Right.
it's a recipe for disaster.
Certainly, and when I met with the legal counsel, his biggest concern with raising rates would be any kind of litigation that comes with, oh, well, you know, you guys are attacking the lower income earner in comparison to anybody else. And the argument that we were presenting was, hey, we're just moving up to everyone else. We're not trying to outdo anybody, we're not trying to make a statement, we're simply raising our rates currently to what everyone else has. Now, if there are individual areas that we want to focus on, I don't see a problem with that, especially if we have concerns. And that would be a conversation for legal counsel whenever we get one.
Well, I appreciate the data to show you, it's not out of line, I just was shocked at how low that one was compared to other states where I've been, because that was a big no-no.
Sure.
So, Mr. Mayor, council, one of the concerns on these parking rates that legal counsel did advise us on is that state statute, the rates within the state statute have not been raised in, I don't know, a decade or something.
Yes.
And the statute does say that we can charge our own rates, but they have to be similar. So the question is, what does similar mean? And so he did advise us not to go too far out. There are some municipalities that have. He even gave us one example, I can't remember, was it Floyd or somewhere, when we had lunch with him.
I don't remember which.
But there was one that, you know, has really raised the rates dramatically. And so that's the only thing is, his concern is that if we get too far out of whack with anything, that it may come back and bite us legally, and then, you know, we wouldn't be able to sustain that if these are ever appealed or whatever, or there could be a class action lawsuit, is what he thought, against all the municipalities that have raised their rates too much. So we did want to raise rates. We talked about bigger numbers than this at one point, but I think that these are reasonable rates, although I agree with you 100% on the school bus. I mean, maybe we look at $300 for that.
Well, because it's right, 6 below it is parking in a handicap space, $250. But passing a school bus for
Well,
a kid,
the new rates are $280 for $280 and $230.
Could we, and I'm not suggesting getting ourselves in trouble, but if we could go find somebody in the state that has a higher, at least fine for the school bus one.
Oh, they're out there.
And do we need to find it? I mean, I think, to Councilor Crane's point, correct me if I'm wrong, but everything else looks to be in line.
Yeah, I agree.
The school bus, and it's only because I'm shocked too, having taken kids for years to the school bus. How many times do you see people pass a school bus?
Yeah.
And I would say 1 in 5 gets pulled over. But that is a scary one. You know, you got little kids out on the highway. And to his point, I think, without looking at Taos, I didn't look at, would you provide Rio Rancho?
I did.
Does Rio Rancho have a?
I think you just had one copy of Rio Rancho.
Well, it'd also be good to look at signage and speed limit reductions during school bus zones, during school bus pickup and drop off.
And that would be revising our overall UTC policy, right? The Uniform Traffic Code policy. We can make changes to that and amend it. And part of the argument to staying similar to the state statutes is the state has added extra fines beyond just the speeding fine, right? They have extra fees tacked on. So the overall actually looks similar to what all these other municipalities are doing. And so that would also be another argument. But yes, I'm sure we can focus on certain areas that.
Well, I'm with Councilor Crane on the school bus and.
Yeah. And another thing, you know, you saw the highlighted part that I added, those are ones that aren't even on the current one we have now. So there's definitely some changes that need to be done to our policy. And that was what I was highlighting was, these are just simple ones that are on everyone's that I thought of and went and looked and said, oh yeah, it's on these other moving violations, why is it not on ours? So we have the policy, we just need to devise a penalty assessment for it. I put the lowest one, $75, that it would be, but yeah.
Well, the potential danger from passing a school bus is even greater than taking away somebody's handicap spot, which is a bad thing to do.
For sure.
But at least in that case, you just denied them a spot. Passing a school bus, a small child could run out in front.
Correct.
And what do you do?
Yeah, and again, I think, and to Counselor Wigg's point, I mean, I don't know, but I've never seen a municipality that has reduced rates on a bus route. Speed limit, obviously it's a school zone typically, but anything to deter, to let people know that that's a serious
I'm on board.
offense. So I think with maybe readdress that one. Again, just looking at it, I feel like you've done a great job. But that's something that we have discussed in the past, just that particular fee.
Sure.
And I'm not opposed to doubling what you have here, $500. I mean, that's, I think, again, a serious offense.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, you said 500?
That would be my recommendation. And that's not out of line in other areas now, maybe not in New Mexico. But that's a serious offense and.
Let me see what Rio Rancho says real quick.
Looks like we had
Taos
another
says
comment.
161.
Right.
So yeah, Taos is cheaper than we are to pass the school bus.
Is there another comment?
I saw Jerry with his hand up in the back there, but maybe he was
I was holding up 5 fingers.
500,
Man,
Or 5 figures?
man,
please.
Mayor, council, manager, guests, municipal court has a limitation on any traffic misdemeanor. The maximum fine they can issue is $500. So I would caution us not to go over $500 on anything, and that's even for DWI offense involved in accident with minor injury. So for the municipality here, $500 would be the maximum that anything could go to. And I do agree, school bus zone, passing school bus, when it has the stop placard out and emergency warning lights indicated, I think that would be an appropriate maximum fine. Now that's for penalty assessment. Please keep in mind that any violator that is stopped or contacted by law enforcement has 2 options: to accept the penalty assessment at the scene of the stop, or to contest the citation and appear in court. So with that, the judge then has the leniency to go lesser than what the recommended penalty assessment is, or greater than that, and to include court costs on top of any fine.
Thank you very much.
And I agree, 500 is appropriate.
Did you go ahead and introduce yourself for the record?
Oh, yes, I sure can. My name is Jerry Hogriff. I'm on my 2nd day as the chief of police here in Angel Fire, New Mexico.
Rio Rancho shows 150.
Cheaper than Taos.
Yes.
Well, I would support raising it, and, you know, again, I appreciate the comment about it sounds like if we try to raise it above 500, we're gonna have a problem with municipal court, but, you know,
Or state
$300,
statute.
$400, $500, somewhere in that range is, I think, wholly appropriate, given the risk involved in the infraction.
Sure.
So we can't make a decision on that because this is a work session.
Sure.
But what I would like to do independently is recommend that the council get with Lieutenant Strickland with your recommendations, so that when we have the next meeting, he can bring kind of a consensus to the meeting for approval.
Sounds good.
Great.
there any other discussion on traffic violation fees?
Yes, sir. Mr. Manager, these are obviously ordinance changes. Does that make the resolution still pertinent to this discussion, or do we come back with ordinance changes to?
Yeah, so this is, unlike everything else, and I asked legal counsel if we could separate these out into a resolution, that these will be in the form of an ordinance change that we'll have to do, because these prices are embedded in the ordinance.
So these will not be resolutions.
These will not be a resolution.
Okay. Any other discussion on item L? Let's move on to item M. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Discussion of resolution 2024-42, fiscal year 25 holiday schedule.
Mr. Mayor, Council, this is basically mimicking or what we're proposing is mimicking the holiday schedule we had last year. Of course, what's in your packet is from the prior year resolution. We would simply update it with days of the week, on some of them dates and year, but we are going to be proposing these same days in the council meeting on the 25th.
So, at some point not too long ago, I think village management coordinated with employees, and for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, those were the proposed dates that worked best for the employees over those particular holidays.
You mean having the holiday out on the actual?
What you've proposed to update this, yes. I'm agreeing with what's presented.
I see.
And I will say too, that it was the practice of the previous administration to close a day early or noon prior to the holidays. And I don't see that continuing.
When I was an employee, I loved it. Now, not so much.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on the holiday schedule? Okay. Then we need to circle back to item A. I would ask,
Can we go get
I
some
don't
notes?
mind. So at this time, moving on to item A, discussion ordinance 2024-01, amending Title IX adjustments, combining two sets.
These are my notes, I'm not sure if he was paying.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor,
Martinez.
members of council, Santos Martinez, planning and zoning consultant. This is the second batch that I mentioned to you earlier when you approved the first batch of looking at making some more flexibility in our land use code for folks who are looking at a townhome product and also want to plat that. So that first batch, we looked at if you have access to public water, public sewer, we really didn't care about your minimum lot size because there really wasn't a conflict. What we forgot is that the very end of the development standards in these zoning districts was a classification that says minimum lot width is 25 feet. So we want to match that with the amendments that just went out earlier this month. Same provisions match that accessibility to water and sewer, so it's not just anywhere across those districts. There was a noted conflict within your O districts is that the height standards weren't the same. One of the commissioners asked if that was really just a typo, that was kind of thought that they would be. So that's brought forward. There's one other standard that you have, it's on private drives and garages off private drives, that there's an additional setback off of that edge of the drive to the door. And my experience is this is the same code that we have in the city of Dallas, where they put that provision in for a 20-foot setback so somebody could get off the road, would not block traffic, or an alley. And in my experience for 20 years, we were allowed to go get a variance for that, and it was always approved so long as you used an automatic garage door opener. So using that experience, that if you have a drive approach that's not 20 feet from the edge of the private drive, if you have an automatic opener, we could still look at it as a permit review. But the other standards that you have really should have been in the first round, it's just we didn't catch it on that first round. But again, to provide more flexibility in housing development and for platting opportunities as well, where somebody could be a fee simple owner for their home, rather than having just to do it as condo, this provision needs to be codified with what you considered before. So this was a good debate at Planning and Zoning. There was no other discussion about maybe, you're right, we should have caught this up the first time. And stand for any questions you may have.
Questions? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, with that, this meeting is adjourned.
You're not allowed to take a shower. That'd be cheating.
Record.
Hey, Kurt, did you get a copy of the? This is the one I've seen. Yeah, it was supposed to be in the packet.